It was really tough on Rick because everything in, even when with testing and everything, when you went in to get results or anything, which we did, we were doing it every 3 months at that point. But even when you go in to get your results, it's not Rick and Scott, it's this number and this number when they pull the files and everything. So it was constantly, whatever we did, it usually always came up that you were just a number. My partner was Rick Bowers. We were together for 6 years. Actually, Rick knew that he was HIV positive when we got together, and that. Great guy. As far as I'm concerned, we'd still be together to this day. Biggest memory is helping to raise his son. Rick had, when we got together, Sean was 4 years old, and so I helped raise him from 4 to 8 years old. That's the biggest accomplishment that came out of it. Unfortunately, we lost Rick way too soon, but up until about a year ago, I still had weekly contact with Sean. Biggest thing with the quilt is Rick didn't want to just be another number, another statistic. He wanted something out there to enlighten and educate everyone. One of his biggest regrets at the end is he wanted to be well enough to be able to go to the March on Washington, and he couldn't do it. And when Rick passed, the first thing that came up that I could figure out to do something to make him not just another number, another statistic, was with the quilt. So myself and some friends of mine, there was a group of 6 of us, and 3 of them have succumbed to AIDS also. But we decided to put the panel together in his memory and everything for it, figuring that way it's not always here with us, but it's out there, and we know it's out there, and hopefully doing some educating and everything for people even today yet. The second date, I knew that he was HIV positive and everything, and we just kind of learned along the way because he had only been diagnosed 6 months before that. So we just kind of learned together as we went what could be done, what couldn't be done, what needed to be done to maintain his health and everything. It really didn't bother me much at all, only because I've dealt with cancer, I've dealt with strokes, that type of thing through family, and to me it's just one of those things. It was part of Rick. To me it wasn't any different than somebody coming in and say, hey, I've got cancer. And that it was just something we dealt with. Goes to say a lot for Rick, because to this day, I'm still HIV negative. And that we did what we needed to do to keep everything good. Statistic-wise, every time you heard a report on, whether it be in the newspaper, the radio, TV, whatever, as far as AIDS, it was always the statistic count. It was never that, hey, we've got 12,000 people that are infected, but 10,000 of the people are surviving and making a life. It was always just, you'd always hear exactly what the statistic count was, which made it tough, because then it'd be a little time again to reiterate the fact that, hey, you're not just another statistic, that we can do what we need to do to beat this, or at least extend it, to overcome the being a statistic. When we first heard about the quilt, it was kind of numbers, because they were talking about the blocks. So many panels could fit on the blocks and everything. Once again, it was another number. But by adding Rick to the quilt and everything, it became not a number, it became something personal. That you see the pictures, you see the dates, you see everything right there in front of you. And that rather than just another number count. There is a big gay population in York, but the gay community itself in York isn't that close. But through Open and enough different people with the connections, we were able to get the word out. And that, because originally we were only thinking that we were going to have 2 to 3 panels. But through word of mouth and everything, and once we got the ball rolling, so to say, there's a lot more people that came forward that, hey, I lost my son a year ago, or I lost my partner 2 years ago, wondering if there was some way that they could be part of it. With the statistics, everything pretty much stopped. And there's an awful lot of people that are under the impression that, well, AIDS isn't out there anymore, it's not that big of a deal. And it's just as much out there and just as big of a deal as what it was 10, 20 years ago. Roses that are on it, naturally a picture of Rick himself, the teddy bear, and the 77. And 77 was kind of our thing. Hate to say it, it's a lot better now than what it was back then, but Rick and I in public couldn't say I love you or anything. So 77 was always our way of saying that I love you, that type of thing. And that in public, no one knew what it meant, but Rick and I both knew. And that was the main thing that had to be on the quilt.